Hey, and welcome to your mental wealth class. My name is Sanford, your mind-body connection coach. So glad you guys can join me today. Free our youth. This is my call. This is my calling. A lot of my topics sound like I'm talking and gearing toward adults, but they're really designed for our youth. Our young people will always find out stuff. The question is, can they come to us as their parents, their guardians, and leaders? And when we And is it okay for them to share and to feel supported by us and know that they are loved no matter what? Freeing our youth from our lies, our fears, our shame is the mission so they can be freer in their life. Make sure that you like this video and share it, please. That would be awesome. Relationships grow or crash on habits. Now, I want to bring 4 habits that I've learned over time to you guys today. So it starts by building more intentional and clearly directed friendships, which I did a video on last week. If you understand that, the development of that friendship, you walk into situations more clear. And we're not stuck in what I call FASI. FASI is fear, anxiety, shame, and insecurity. And of course, it's brought forth by our traumas from our past. And we, of course, carry them into our relationships. Now that includes our families, our friendships, and without a doubt, all of our intimate relationships. Our relationships are triggered by life events, whether that's moving in together, going camping or vacation, working on a project, working in the same office on ideas, starting a family, and certainly it comes into anything that we want to develop with people, which is so crucial because we can't have relationships without people. Relationships, of course, bring up conflict, unmet expectations, poor conflict resolutions, trust and respect issues, and poor communication. We're going to dive into that shortly. Now, I'm not here talking about abusive relationships or staying in abusive relationships because that's a whole other kettle of fish, okay? And you guys, you can look elsewhere for those conversations. But I'm here talking about navigating areas, particularly the 4 areas that we're going to talk about in your relationships, starting in your friendships and building into your intimate relationships. It's time for us to rediscover how to have lasting relationships in our lives. Now, just a word of caution, these aren't academic antidotes. You say them and then hope that they work out in your relationships. Both people involved need to be active and intentional at making these 4 habits come alive in their relationships. And again, if we start them in friendships, they will. When it comes to relationships, everything I speak on is based not only in my research, but it's based on personal experience and of course, my time at being a counselor. When it comes to conflict, we can be self-centered. We focus on me because we want our needs met. We want to be understood. And the 4 habits required for us to step up to get past our FASI and to get past our trauma requires these 4 habits. Okay? Are you ready? All right. 4 habits that I discovered in my work. And remember, this is not anything new. I've just discovered it myself over time. 1, be curious, not critical. Having grown up quick, because my dad left when I was 6, my mom died when I was 8, and I grew up without a lot of love in my home. So once I started dating, I was very critical of why girls wanted to do things for me. What was their angle? What did they want in return? And I wondered when they would find out that I wasn't good enough in that relationship and they would leave. Now, each of us has some sort of trauma we're all carrying around, and it comes out in our closest and intimate relationships. So with my trauma and my partner's trauma, when we started fighting or having disagreements, it was not pretty. It was not pretty. There was not love in what we were doing. There was not trying to find that place of care for each other in what we were doing. But what we were fighting over each other's strengths. We weren't appreciating each other. We were out of balance. So habit number 1 is understanding our past and how we can rewire it differently so we can focus on strengthening each other instead of wasting time criticizing each other's differences. And it's interesting to hear myself talk about these habits now, because when I first heard, about them, my pain was still high and I wasn't ready to be a partner. Okay, second one, be careful of criticizing. Our autonomic nervous system, our fight and flight states are very, again, me-centered, and they want to react and have that conflict right away or run, all right? So we're not steady, we're not in a steady place, we're not centered. And so we want to cause not only harm to our partner, but we want to escape and be in that fight or flight all the time, right? And so being able to create these, to practice these 4 habits will help us learn how to stay centered, okay? So we're not always in that conflict, we're not always in that reactive mode, okay? Instead, we're creating genuine solutions no matter how angry we might be at each other. One of the disciplines I had to learn and that I share with my clients is to set ground rules that control behavior when you're in conflict situations. Now, don't get me wrong. This practice is not going to happen overnight, okay? Because there's a lot of FASI, there's a lot of trauma. Okay, so it's not going to be perfect in the beginning. So you have to be patient with each other. But to build those genuine relationships, it's going to take time. For me, I had to set my own ground rules since I discovered these habits after my marriage. Yet I bring them into my everyday life as well as dating. 2 of my ground rules, okay? One is to listen deeply before I respond with anger or become defensive. Slow down my breathing and what I'm feeling so I can really hear what people are saying. And number 2, take time to really feel what that person is saying, not just think or have a ready-made answer ready to go. I also ask my friends and my intimate partners what their ground rules are in conflict situations, just so we have safe words and behaviors that ensure that we stay centered. Now, what I'm talking about may sound totally foreign because we are not taught about FASI or trauma. Part of this talk is not only to help put some new practices in place for your relationships, but to help realize that FASI and trauma that we carry around, that we haven't addressed, that we can address, that we can build healthy, stronger conflict resolution in our relationship, but we got to work on it. It's about learning how to argue better, treat each other with care, and build each other up together. Habit number 3, ask, don't assume. You remember earlier I told you about my upbringing. There was a lot of people leaving me in my life early, so I had many trust issues. And of course, that spilled over to all my relationships. Now, I also was a professional entertainer. I traveled and danced a lot. So I got the opportunity to date several different women from around the world, from many different cultures. This, of course, meant that each relationship had its own cultural rules. This didn't make it any easier for anybody, either one of us in the relationship. Now, we all had our FASI, we all had our trauma, and then we had our cultural traditions and ideologies. So for me, having seen, thinking that maybe these people were racist, but they were just caught in their FASI or their trauma. Or if they were caught in their FASI or trauma, they were saying things that were just traditionally put into them that sounded racist. So we had a lot of different issues, okay, that would come up and that were unseen and unhealed for us. Now, whether you're in a mixed cultural relationship or not, you must ask the tough questions throughout the relationship. It's so deeply important. A lot of conflict that occurs in relationships are about different levels of respect. And this, of course, has to do with culture. This has to do with FASI. This has to do with trauma and ideology roles in the relationship, okay? So gathering information and insight about each other's differences is highly crucial in the relationship, all right? And before you go too far in the relationship, you want to start to have these conversations. And you want to have them, a month later, a year later. You want to continue to have these so you're creating consistency and openness throughout your relationship. And then as people mature and things change, you're still able to have these open and honest conversations. Habit number four, connect before you correct. We want to help people naturally. However, is it the right time, or are we really connected before we start sharing these loving insights? It's easy to take people that we love and that we live with for granted, and we criticize and we talk about them behind their back. Now, in my research, I heard this quote. It said, "People go where they are welcomed, but stay where they're valued." I think that is awesome. So here we have to find and practice ways of building warmth, empathy, and intention about our relationships. Learning how to be spontaneous and recognize when it's time to stop, even in the middle of the day, when we're working on a project. I'm talking about friendships too, but I'm mainly talking about the interrelationships. So we can get away and go out and see the world, take a lunch, go on a swing set, hang out by the park, watch people, so we can create those magic moments of coming back together. Okay? So we're not living in this fake world. It's super important to get really honest and vulnerable about routine conversations. Okay? This, of course, will keep us connected. So when we're in the bedroom or we're getting physical, it's real. It's real. Our intimacy is real in that physicality. I need you to know we are all big boys and girls, but we still have to recognize our FASI, our trauma, our tradition, our cultural differences. So you think it's just, so you're not thinking it's just going to happen. The lack of real connection and understanding is not only traumatizing to us as adults, it's also traumatizing to kids, our extended family, and anyone who has to witness our pain. Many people feel like a failure or useless or numb or very unlovable when a relationship breaks down. I have seen many a family member break down for months, even years, when their relationships are disconnected after a separation or divorce. I personally have had one friend who committed suicide after divorce. She had been saying, I wasn't super close, but I knew her. She had been saying that she was feeling numb. She didn't understand what happened. I want to ask you, how many people are we missing who are numb, who are saying they don't understand? With mental health such a big topic these days, why is relational health not a bigger part of the conversation? It's important to start conversation in your relationships, to get to know each other, not just romantically. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about life, not just the marriage, and not just the kids. I'm talking about each other's life. This is such an important aspect. Start with the 4 habits. 1, be curious, not critical. Be careful, not crushing. Ask, don't assume. Connect before you correct. We all invest in what we prioritize. Our homes, our holidays, our cars, our Bitcoin, our stock. So what's really stopping us from investing in our relationships? What would our relationships, our health, our world look like if we invested in each other? I believe we would begin to thrive as individuals, as a family, even in our companies, because we would begin to feel each other and welcome and value each other. Well, folks, that's all for me today. I want to thank you guys for popping in. Can you make sure that you share this video and smash that like button? I sure would appreciate it. Remember, fight the right fight. Earn your peace. Share your gifts. And always, always love your mission.